Everybody can take their seats. Okay. I think everybody is here who should be here. I'm just going to have the usual minute silence to remind ourselves that we're here because of the people of Seaford and for the people of Seaford. Then I've got a couple of announcements and then we'll start the agenda. Thank you. So thank you to all members of the public, councillors and officers who are joining us for today's meeting. Councillors and officers are reminded of their commitment to civility and respect pledge and to be mindful of this through tonight's meeting. Please be aware that the council is videoing this meeting and it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. Just like to highlight some of the key points of the meeting format. Please can I ask everyone to have their phones switched off or set to silent. Please remain seated unless you're invited to speak or need to take a comfort break. Toilet facilities are out in the corridor you enter through. Fire exits are via the doors of the chambers and down the external fire escape or via the main entrance through which you enter the building. The assembly point is outside the Royal Mail Parcel Office on West Street, and in the event of a fire the lift shouldn't be used, and for those who do require the lift, officers will guide you to the correct process to enter the building. Members of the public are invited to participate in the meeting with the key points as follows. Public participation is limited to a maximum of 4 minutes per person, and as chair I will interject if needed to enforce this. When public participation agenda item is introduced, please raise your hand to show that you wish to speak and I'll invite you to speak. If you're comfortable standing, please do so in order to ensure that you can be heard across the room. You don't need to state your name when you start speaking if you don't wish to. I would ask that participants looking to leave the meeting wait until the end of an agenda item to limit distraction for other participants. Members of the public looking to leave the building will need to be escorted out by a council officer. If the meeting goes into confidential session, a short 2-minute break will be held to allow members of the public to leave. To all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and to avoid interrupting where possible in order to enable others to follow the meeting. If any councillor feels concerned about any aspect of the meeting or discussion, please clearly state the point of order and I will then gesture you to elaborate. If anyone present is felt to be behaving unacceptably, they can be ejected from the meeting by resolution. Thank you for listening, and on behalf of the council I'd like to thank everyone for attending this town council meeting, which is yet another extraordinary general meeting. I have got a message from Peter White, our beloved town crier. As I mentioned last week that he had been taken ill and had been taken to hospital. And he contacted me by email the following day. So this was Friday the 24th of April. And I have his permission to just read it out. It is typically Peter. I gather I was mentioned at full council yesterday. Thank you so much! Exclamation mark. The DGH, i.e. Eastbourne DGH, had me fitted with a stent within 2 hours. So that means he's had either a severe angina attack or more likely a heart attack. They discharged me after 5 days. Obviously I'm on 6 weeks of reduced duties, but feel great. Missing the town forum, i.e. tomorrow, but I'll probably be okay for mayor making. Very best wishes, Peter. So I'm sure we're very relieved that he is obviously back almost to his normal self and we send our love and very best wishes for a full recovery and hope to see him soon. So that was really rather lovely, I thought. Right, okay, now moving on to the full agenda, which is the revised agenda, because we have items added 14 and 15. So, Town Clerk, first of all, apologies please.
Thank you, Chair. So we have apologies from Councillor Lord for personal commitments, Councillor Ali for personal commitment, Councillor Horu for work commitments, Councillor Matthews for personal commitment, Councillor Adeniji for work commitments, and a lateness apology from Councillor Markwell for a personal commitment.
Thank you.
So apologies, and Councillor Rooster, and apologies for personal commitment.
Thank you. Right, agenda item 2, disclosure of interests. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interests and interests other than pecuniary interests, as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and Local Income Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Do any councillors have any declarations of interest? No. Item number 3, public participation. To deal with any questions or brief representations from members of the public physically in the meeting room in accordance with relevant legislation and Seaford Town Council policy. Do we have any? Okay. Would you like to stand up and talk to us, please?
Good evening. My name is Keith, and I reside when I'm here in Martello Mews, looking over the gravel strip that is in your agenda item. We had a annual general meeting of the Mews, and I got the short straw to come to the meeting and listen to what you have to say about the subject. I know it's a moving sort of target with new information. Just to be clear that it was unanimous within the Martello for many years that we would support the installation of bollards. We have observed that the campers and caravans are getting increasingly, over years, more belligerent, a little ruder in their response. And as it pertains to your next item, they often get big sacks of trash and stuff it into the bins. So on the bins, I talked to the people who do the trash removal several years ago on this matter, and they actually said even if it did them out of a job, a counterintuitive approach might be not to have any bins at all. We're encouraged to have personal responsibility. Our Seaford group that rowed across the Atlantic packed it in and packed it out. And so it's a very simple message that I grew up with is pack it in, pack it out. And maybe there could be some campaign money that you're saving, because I've been educated on how much money is spent on this issue, to actually do a completely different approach. I know it's kind of not likely to fly, but I think at least somebody should mention it as a real and serious possibility. Good enough.
Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. And just for the record, I would add that several emails from possibly yourself or your group colleagues have been received by officers and have been circulated to councillors, a video of fairly antisocial behaviour. So I would just assure you that not only did we pursue the parking advice side with the county council, we actually pursued a behavioural, antisocial behaviour with Lewes District Council and sought legal advice with videos that we were able to produce, but they felt it didn't reach the level of antisocial behaviour that you need for a public spaces protection order. But we did go down that a couple of years ago.
Thank you.
So,
I know it's a long-term thing.
Yes. Okay.
Issue.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Right. Okay. Item 4, petitions. In accordance with the Town Council petitions policy, this is a standard agenda item to facilitate any public petitions being presented to and noted by full council. Please note that this will not prompt a discussion on the petition at this meeting. Do we have any petitions?
No petitions.
Moving swiftly on to item 5, proposals for the gravel strip along Esplanade adjacent to the Martello Tower. This is Peter?
Yep. So I would just like to add that due to the recently discovered information that there are highway rights over the land, this has limited our options available for bollards, and that is why we're only showing them one type of bollard, because essentially it has to be that bollard or something that looks almost identical to it. So we had looked at other options, but because of its highways right, we are limited to that. But I welcome any questions.
Thanks. Right. Councillor Dubar, Councillor Dunn.
I mean, we know this is a major problem, and you all know that I report this matter on a regular basis, because it doesn't just happen on the gravel strip, it happens at the bottom of Edinburgh Road. And what's going to happen is when you remove that, when you stop those motorhomes parking there, you're going to move the problem on. So you are going to get further complaints from other people, other residents who live in other areas where those vans now disperse. So you need to bear that in mind. What I wanted to ask was, if I know the bollards have got to sit so far from the wall, whichever way it is, but that strip of road there is problematic because two cars can't get past at the same time if there's a van on this side parked. So can part of that gravel strip be tarmacked and double yellow lined so that it widens the road and makes it easier for residents, as well as the bollards going in, please? Thank you.
So, as we've recently discovered, because it has a highway right over it, that would be the responsibility of East Sussex, but we can certainly put that suggestion to them.
Thank you.
Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Sort of echoing on from Councillor Dubas, I was at Goscar and I knew about the bollards as an agenda item, but I did at the time think that this is very strange that it sits right next to this highway and this is a bit of gravel strip that just sort of hangs there, and wondered if it did have highway rights. My concern with bollards is that it's going to be long-term problems, and I sort of support, if we could, contact, we're dealing with highways, Balfour Beatty, because I've been on their website, if we did tarmac it, that we did consider specifically the area that Councillor Dubas pointed out. It's very, very narrow there, extremely narrow. I've driven there many times, and you do feel like if something heavy's coming at you, you're forced onto the gravel strip. So a bollard is definitely going to be ploughed into at some point. And I know that that will be the responsibility of the driver who's hit the bollard. If we could consider putting forward to highways, Balfour Beatty, but we did the double yellow in a specific part, which is the more narrow part, and then consider maybe some disabled parking, because with blue badge parking, the camper vans wouldn't be allowed to park there if we go down the route of tarmacking, and maybe some, because it's a very, very long gravel strip for bollards, I believe. Thank you.
Do you have any?
So we can pose those questions to East Sussex. I couldn't say how they receive it, but we could pose those questions to East Sussex.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Rutland and Councillor Gorman.
I support this motion for bollards completely. I think the narrower section acts a bit like a chicane and therefore slows the traffic down. People drive far too fast along the seafront, and when it's very busy, the slower the traffic is, the better. So I think we leave it as a pinch point and keep it that way. I do think, the other morning I went past there were 14 different camper vans there all in a row, and it incenses me, and I know it upsets residents. We have a duty to the residents. I think this is an excellent solution. A good place for the camper vans to go would be along where the Martello is, along the edge of that path, because it's much wider and it's right opposite the toilets and so on and so on. So there's a logical place for them to go, and I think that's what we should do.
Councillor Warman, then Councillor Honeyman.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, going to what Councillor Dubas says, that we alleviate the issue of camper vans in this area, they're going to move to other areas. Camper vans, I think, have been an issue with this council for a long time.
Yes.
And what I've said from day one is this council needs to provide an area for camper vans. If most of Europe provides parking for camper vans, people will go and park there, and if they can't park there, they will go find somewhere else where camper vans can park. They will pay for this parking, and this is what residents want. If we can provide an area for these camper vans that have the facilities that they need, we're going to alleviate the problems of the seafront continually. That being said, bollards in that area are quite welcome, but we do need to provide an area for these camper vans, because otherwise we're just going to move the problem on and on. Some people bring up the Buckle Caravan Park being a suitable place for them, but that's full over the summer. I know the owner of the caravan park, and they are fully booked. They do not have room for them, which means we need to provide somewhere else for them, and the caravan park is not the option.
Councillor Honeyman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with what Councillor Gordon says, but obviously that caravans have to go somewhere, but specifically looking at what's in hand there with the bollard. I wasn't at the meeting for the GOSCA, but are the County Council looking at the bigger picture around there, a little bit of traffic calming anyway, or was it just the bollards and they're incorporating that in as such? And also the bollards themselves, if a car goes into it, they're not going to get too damaged. If there was an emergency and they wanted to swerve into them, they are this type which will flip down, so to speak. That's what and not cause too much problems.
So through the chair, we only discovered 8 days ago that the piece of road has highway rights, and since then there's been a number of inquiries made to East Sussex to try and ascertain what their view is of what they're going to do to the piece of road, whether it's going to be tarmacked, when it would be tarmacked, lined, parking enforcement and so on.
Yeah.
And at this stage we don't really have answers to that, so we're not at the point where we would know the further answers to your questions about what traffic calming measures they're going to put in place there. I would imagine there isn't a plan to do that, because they would have probably already started that process.
So the traffic calming as well, a little, but you don't really quite know.
I don't know the answer.
That's fine, thank you.
Specifically on the bollards, yes, they are specifically designed, so this is why highways limit the bollards you can put next to highways, so they are passively safe, so they will bend over and actually return straight, usually, if a car hits them.
Okay, thank you.
I would also add that we did get an estimate, or we thought we owned this as part of the gravel strip, and we got an estimate from Highways about 2, possibly 3 years ago, and to just remove the gravel and tarmac it and paint lines on it, which would still allow camper vans there, because their officers are not allowed to make a legal decision about what is and isn't a camper van. That was going to be nearly £40,000 excluding VAT. So, and that was several years ago, so it's quite a costly thing to do as an extra cost that hasn't been thought about.
Thanks, Councillor Emma. I'm quite familiar with the problem down there. For several years I lived on College Road, not very far away, and actually walking up the side of the Martello Fields and then crossing over was my usual route on a once or twice daily basis around the seafront on the dog walk. I'd like consideration to be given to pedestrians there as well as the car drivers. It is the first opening in the seawall that you have after the Martello, and it's quite busy, particularly in the summer, and I think it'll be good if bollards are there, because limiting the parking is actually quite difficult for drivers and pedestrians to see when you sort of come off the promenade and try and cross over and come back into town. I'd love to see that space used in the future under Section 5 for something positive. I'm slightly uncomfortable that we as a town council should be numbered with the cost of dealing with this problem, which is, as I view it, essentially a highways issue with the camper vans, but I know residents and in general people are suffering. If the camper vans move along to the Martella, we'll still have the same problems with the toilets being overwhelmed and so on and so forth. So actually I think, although this is an item in itself, it's quite important to consider it along with the next item for the bins and such, and the whole sort of ecosystem of how things work. I'm not about to suggest any amendments, but I would like, the pedestrian aspect to be taken into account when these are designed and placed. And I mean, ideally, we don't have any zebra crossings or similar across the seafront, apart from one by the Salts, I believe. And I do just anecdotally, people saying, can we have some more? I know these things are very, very hard to get, but I would imagine in the future, if there were places that they would come, that would probably be one of the places. So just bear that in mind. Thanks.
Councillor Mead and then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say I'm finding this quite confusing that we own the land, yet it has highway rights, and in view of the fact that these things have only just been discovered 8 days ago, and this was a recommendation from GOSCA on previous knowledge, when that knowledge is now completely updated, and I feel that we still don't have all the knowledge that we would need, Chair, to make a good decision about this, because we could say, yes, we'll mandate to spend a certain amount of money to put bollards in, but actually we need to have the whole of the information from East Sussex, I feel, about what they could do, what they might do, what their view of it is. And I feel that although I absolutely understand that we need to solve this problem, it seems we haven't got enough information still. So I would propose, although I know it may stick in people's throats, but I would prefer to defer this until East Sussex has actually come up. We've had more discussion with East Sussex so that we can understand fully what the situation is. I don't think, I understand the traffic may be moved somewhere else, but I think we could deal with that at another time. We've got, this is the agenda item, not where the camper vans might move to. It's dealing with this piece of ground, I think, is the first issue. And I think until we understand from East Sussex exactly what the parameters are for what they would do, how much it would cost us, if it was going to cost us, etc., I would personally prefer to defer because I don't feel I've got enough information.
Councillor Hallinan? Oh, sorry, yes. Councillor Buchanan and then Councillor Hallinan.
Thank you, Chair. Just pretty quick. This talks about these bollards are set out a maximum gap of 1.2 metres. Is that a requirement, or you could cheapen it up by doing it at 1.5? Or?
So we had this conversation with the 3 contractors I spoke to, and also with East Sussex. The recommendation: there are smaller vehicles and large motorbikes who would be able to get through on the 1.5 metres, and therefore the recommendation, the standard practice, is to do 1.2 metres. So that's why we suggested that.
You could still get a motorbike there.
You could get a motorbike through, but small cars can get through at 1.5.
Councillor Hanneman and then Councillor Bristow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A long time ago when I was Mayor, I remember we got lots and lots and lots of emails, pictures, videos, lots of videos, so I would be really worried about deferring this anymore, because this has taken a long time just to get to this point, to be able to find a way around this situation. I know there was actually a suggestion by the chap there about doing diagonal parking, but then that was deemed that probably wasn't suitable. So the idea of coming up with bollards, just some way of stopping people actually parking there, because some of the videos that I've sent, some of the pictures, and that was also a couple of years ago, thinking I wouldn't want to be looking at this, and I wouldn't want to be seeing people doing their ablutions and everything else. So I think this is something we need to get on with, get something in place to stop what the Martello Mews residents have had to deal with for quite a few years. Obviously, I hear Councillor de Bass's concern about the fact it's just going to move the problem along. But I think that one of the reasons it's so popular, the gravel strip, is because it's that bit wider, so you can get at the vehicle, you can move around it, where it's not so easy further along. Possibly not, but anyway, I would prefer not that this is deferred and that the bollards get put in place too.
Councillor Bristol and then Councillor Dunn.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, a quick one that I forgot to include asking. I'm sure 99.9999% of drivers are very considerate along the seafront, but for those who may have a real desire to park there and a hire vehicle and would like to drive over the bollards and park there anyway, can you just tell me what happens to the vehicle if they drive over them, and how much you would budget as a repair cost ongoing for these bollards if you were to find that that they were basically driven over and just ruled over?
So my understanding is the bollards are quite resistant and they can bend up to 90 degrees and return. If they're hit at speed, I think they can cause damage. So I haven't got a specific figure in my head, but we definitely would put something in the budget. After this year, we would see how this year goes. If it's becoming a common issue, then we will make sure there's something in the budget for future years for replacement bollards.
So just to clarify, so theoretically a vehicle could drive over, it goes 90, they could stay the night and then they drive back and it pops up?
In theory, yes, it will cause some damage to most vehicles, but yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Just through the chair, I mean, it's not the case that it's just going to easily flip over and flip back up again. You know, there's some resistance there, it's going to damage the vehicle.
Okay, so there's going to be, are there going to be some signage to let people know that to deter them from doing it?
I mean, we need to comply with the rules of what East Sussex demand. But I think passively safe doesn't mean it would just bend over, it means if you hit it, it's not like hitting a brick wall.
Thanks.
Councillor Dunn and then Councillor Rutland.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, you mentioned that it would, Madam Mayor mentioned that it would be at our cost to do the tarmac, surely as it is actually an adopted highway, or unadopted, whatever way you want to look at it, would it not be down to, Balfour Beatty, would it not be down to them to support, do the cost of this rather than down to us, as it's not technically us, it's a highway. The other thing is that we've got so much problems on our seafront in relation to parking. So by putting bollards there, we've already lost a massive amount of area for all of Seaford. I mean, sorry, I do completely support and understand the residents of the Mews, but we could do with extra parking on our seafront, especially some disabled parking, and that is the area that I'm mainly concerned about because, as already been mentioned, it is the opening of the onto the highway from the promenade, because the museum gets very busy in the summer period. Okay, thank you.
I think just for clarification, this was 2 or 3 years ago when we believed we were the owners. So we found out, we asked them for an estimate how much they would charge us for doing this. Clearly it's not, it would be a cost to...
Would it still be a cost to us?
No, it wouldn't be a cost to us, but it would be a deterrent to East Sussex Highways to think about whether they were going to do it. If I wasn't clear enough, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, if I could just add as well, so my understanding is, although it's got highway rights, it's not an adopted highway, so yes, East Sussex are responsible for the maintenance, but how they choose to maintain it and to what standard is essentially up to them. So they might say it's fine as it is. So we can obviously ask them, but it would be up to them.
Through the chair, if I can just add to that, I've been trying to get an answer ready for this meeting in the last 8 days, and I've spoken with the Highways team a number of times. What is becoming apparent is that it's going to take a while before we would get an answer from East Sussex Highways whether they would tarmac it, whether they would then line it, whether they would then provide parking enforcement on it or not. And whether they would see it as a highway defect or whether they would say there's not actually any defects there, leave it as it is. So if it was going to be tarmacked, it would be at East Sussex's responsibility to do it, but they would be dependent on their decision whether or not it needs to be tarmacked, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But in terms of when Maggie was talking about, that was when we thought we owned
it.
2024, I think, yes, okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Rutland, then Councillor Dubar, then Councillor Buchanan. And then I think I'll draw things to a close. I think we've given this quite a lot of discussion.
We have a responsibility to our residents, and this area has been a problem for a very, very long time. I appreciate what Councillor Dunn said about parking. Trouble is, the camper vans have got there first before anyone else can park there. It's a very antisocial, a lot of antisocial behaviour from the camper vans there, and it's very convenient because it's right next to the beach. There are other places they can go and park. I think putting bollards here is absolutely the right thing to do. Delaying it is not, because it's been a problem for years, it's not going to get better, and if we're waiting on somebody else to make the decision, it's not going to get made. I think we have a responsibility, A, to our residents, B, to our seafront, to block this off from camper vans. They can park elsewhere, but this sorts out what is a big problem for a lot of our residents, and that's our primary responsibility.
Thank you. Councillor Dubar, is it a new comment?
Peter, do the bollards, can you take them out and then put them back?
So, within that quote, we've allowed at either end of the strip to have some that can be removed or folded down so that we can gain access at either end of the strip, but the ones in between would be permanently hidden.
It's just if we are going to go to East Sussex County Council and ask them what they're going to do to solve the problem, and if they did then decide to tarmac it, it wouldn't be £15,000 wasted. You could take, you know, put them in as a temporary measure and then take them out, let them tarmac it, put them back. But if you look at that strip, in the bit where the tarmac ends and the gravel starts, there are massive ruts in that from the camper vans. And it does need quite urgent action, and they're like big potholes. Now if you're driving on there at night and you damage something, who are they going to come to? Are they going to come to us and sue us? Are they going to sue East Sussex? So East Sussex do need to get involved pretty quick, but I don't want to see us put in the whole bill. They need to come up with some cash as well, and I don't want to see us paying out 15 grand and then it being a waste of money. So that's sort of what I was questioning there, please.
Through the chair, I mean, I don't. If we were to bollard it to stop it from being a road, I don't see why East Sussex would then decide to tarmac it, because we would have gone through a licence process to basically render it unsuitable for vehicular access. So that's the first point. In terms of the second point, they have said that they're going to send out I can't remember the word, but like an inspector, that isn't the word they use, but someone to go and look at the, you know, whether there's defects and what defects need to be dealt with as per their policy, such as potholes and so on. And that's already in train.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Buchanan.
Thank you, Chair.
It is a new comment, is it? New.
I think it's a new one. Because I'm a bit confused here. This is East Sussex County Council are responsible for the gravel strip. We want to put in bollards. So we need to get permission to put in the bollards. Is that how that works? If, for example, the bollards then go in, can we use the gravel strip for some of those things that we had in mind for future use of the gravel strip? Or do we then have to go back and get another say-so from the Sussex County Council? I think that was a new one. Whatever the answer might be to that, you might have to change the wording of the recommendation.
In what way?
In what way?
Well, we note the contents report to approve a budget to install bollards. You'd have to approve a budget to install bollards after you have permission from the Sussex County Council.
Yeah, the end of the recommendation too talks about plus the requirement to pay appropriate fees to the county council, which are the fees that the paper discusses we would need to pay to apply for the licence.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But there's still questions about the ongoing requirements for can we use the
So would we
gravel.
get the licence first And then have the bollards
Yes.
installed, so the licence allows us to get on with things.
Yes.
Yeah, and to be clear, you are correct that this now would put a requirement that if we wanted to add other things onto the strip, we would require a licence to do that, unless we were to apply for the extinguishment of the highway, which is a whole other process.
Right, last question.
Definitely a new one.
Definitely you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, this is going to be too simple, really. I can see where people are coming from. The question hadn't been asked, so partly because you've only learned stuff in the last week or so, I don't think it's helped the situation. Is you try to do everything all in one big go? Tarmac, bollards, or is it meant to be a quick fix so you get the bollards up for the summer of 26? You sort of see where I'm coming from. So I'm trying to work out, is there any feasibility, if the bollards aren't going to be quick, then when can you not try and do everything the county wants to do on the gravel strip and then the bollard all at the same time, so it all looks nice and tidy and then we're done? Bigger.
Through the chair, so the bollards is a quick fix,
Yep.
which is in pursuant of a strategic plan objective.
Yep.
And the intention is to render the area unsuitable for vehicular access.
Yep.
We don't know yet whether or not East Sussex are minded to tarmac it, line it, enforce on it, or just leave it as it is. We don't know. We've been trying to find out for the last 8 days and we haven't had an answer yet. There's no suggestion that the town council is going to tarmac it.
That's serious money, isn't it?
Well, it's not up to us now to do it anyway.
No, you're right, exactly.
But the proposal here is that we leave it as gravel and bollard it, and then East Sussex wouldn't need to tarmac it because it would be rendered unsuitable for vehicular access.
Yeah, so.
Right, I'm going to draw the discussion to a close. I hope that's been acceptable, that we have tried to look at all aspects of this and have a thorough roundtable discussion about this. So I'm going to move to the recommendations. Firstly, to note the contents of the report. I have a proposal for that. Councillor Rutland, seconded Councillor Meek. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? So number 1 is passed. Right, so these are either ors. So recommendation 2 is to approve a budget of £15,500 from the Community Infrastructure Levy funds to install bollards along the gravel strip, plus the requirement to pay the appropriate fees to County Council, totalling £515 to be funded from general reserves. Could I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Borman, seconded Councillor Honeyman. Those in favour? Anyone? No?
10.
Anyone against? Any abstentions? 1 abstention, thank you. So we don't need to consider item recommendation 3. Is that okay? Right. Okay, moving on to item 6. The Seaford bin provision, approval of the preferred options trial in summer 2026.
One question, right? Now that we've agreed to do this, how soon will it be done? Now that we've agreed to do it.
So we haven't really had time to research how long the licenses take to go through, so I can't give you any certainty. I would assume it'll take a month or 2 to get the license.
So it'll be this summer.
I would hope we would have something in for the summer, but we haven't had a chance to check how long these licenses take to approve.
And now we can do it, let's get on with it.
Yeah, as soon as we've got the time frames for the license, we will get the contractor lined up, ready to go for when we get the license.
And let the gravel crunch under your feet.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay.
There's an important question now that we've decided to do it. So.
Right, okay, fine. All right, page 13, item agenda 6, the Seaford bin provision. Peter?
So I have nothing further to add to the information on the paper, but myself and Sharon welcome any questions.
Colleagues, right, Councillor Dunn.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the assets meeting that I'm a member of, this came up for an agenda item, and I've got the minutes here, and I asked the question at the time, and again I ask it, with the big belly bins, which is what we were quite happy with at the assets meeting, I asked the question, would it need a bigger vehicle to empty the bins, like Euro bins? And in the minutes it says, yes, officers did clarify that it will need a bigger, much bigger vehicle to be able to empty these belly bins, or the big belly bins. Is that being included in the cost that is mentioned in the new report? Because I know you're looking at, I know District is now having an issue, probably because they wouldn't have the vehicle to do so. Is it much different to the one that comes now from District? Is it much bigger? Because these bins are 960 litres, they're quite a big capacity. I just wondered if that's been contributed into the cost of the contractor that we're looking at.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, through the chair, the quote that we have had is specifically for emptying the big belly bins, so that has been allowed for, and they are more expensive to empty than a standard bin, and one of the reasons being that it requires a larger vehicle.
Right, lovely.
Colleagues, Councillor Dugar, then perhaps Councillor Buchanan.
Councillor Buchanan first.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of technical things, I imagine. I can't remember where I read it, but these bins, they're excellent bins, very clever. Clever than me, clearly. They screw to the ground. How do you actually get something round to empty them? You can't lift them up, you can't. Just wondering how one actually gets to the point where you get them emptied. That's question one. Question two was, for example, with the heat pump that was installed recently at the Creed Centre, one of the issues that came up was if it had been closer to the sea, it had to have a certain coastal protection to make sure that the electronics inside it didn't get attacked by the salt and all that kind of stuff. It's rather not. I see that Bognor and Reigate and places like that have these things. Whether it's there by the seaside is one issue, or they're further into the town, I don't know. So it might be worth just having a chat with somebody at these places to see how long they've been there. Or I raised the question with Smart Max or whoever about the coastal protection issue. So that was the second question. That's it. Thank you.
Sharon, do you mind if I come to you on the emptying, because I don't know much about that?
Yeah, so the current bins are already screwed or fixed in position, and so there's a door on those that open and are emptied, which will be similar to the big bellies. So the unit will come apart for them to have access to the inner bin. And then the materials, I'm not 100%, but with everything there will be erosion, but those other places are on the seafront. So there is exposure for the other locations.
Yeah, it might just be worth asking a technical question to the guys that make.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment this is for the trial.
I know, but over the first year you might not have a problem. And then you buy them, and then 2 or 3 years down the time.
So we can come back and report on that when we
Just
come back for the
just a clarification.
yeah, report.
Councillor Sturton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to just invite councillors and officers to reflect for a moment on the point made from the gentleman in the public that some thought might at least be to give it about the possible effect of removing the bins. Public policy at all levels is full of examples of iatrogenic intervention that produce the reverse of what they're intended to do, and these perverse and reverse effects. I understand that some years ago in the 2010s in London, they experimented in a couple of streets in West London of taking out all signage and all pavement and all distinction between different forms of traffic and pedestrians and all the rest. And the experience was that actually the traffic flow was better because drivers and pedestrians and everyone else paid attention. And so sometimes things are quite counterintuitive in that sense. There's always a but. So I do think some thought should be given to some kind of experiment like this, but an experiment requires evidence gathering, of course. It would require us to have some state of knowledge of the amount of trash that's left beside or overstuffed into bins at present. It will have to allow us to measure the differences on removing the bin. But would that be at all feasible? I ask that as a genuine question. Would it be something we could have the capacity to monitor?
Through the chair, I mean, I think it would need to be something which would appear in the strategic plan, because it would involve quite a lot of officers. At the moment, the strategic plan talks about coming up with a bin solution along the lines as what was proposed, and it doesn't talk about an experiment of not providing bins effectively. So, I mean, I think it would need to be a strategic plan change.
It's Councillor Dubai.
Right, okay. Sorry, I thought there was someone over here. No? Yeah, Councillor Bristow first.
Sorry, it was Councillor Dubai. Sorry.
Okay, Councillor Dubai and then Councillor Bristow.
I've got quite a few points. So this proposal, so just make sure I've understood this. This proposal is to remove the existing bins, put them in storage, replace them with the big belly bins. So Lewes District Council will no longer empty the bins on the seafront. This future streets contract will empty the bins.
ID Verdi.
I will empty the bins. Right, okay. And you've, on 4.10, you've made a note that they want 13 of these bins, and it's not going to financially benefit the company, but I think that's not quite correct, because it will benefit the company if we agree to 13 bins. Going forward, they're going to benefit from 13 bins in the new contract. So I think we need to establish where is the data to suggest 13 bins is needed. Why not 10 or 9, if somebody could help me with that. If we go with this provider to place the bins, does that restrict who we get to empty them? So it can be everybody. And those reports that come in from the bins, you've not mentioned how that software works anywhere. Is there a cost to the software? Is there a cost to getting the reports? Is there a maintenance cost going forward? When are we going to get that information? How is it going to inform the bins being emptied? What percentage of the bin being full is going to generate an alarm to say you need to go and empty it? What are the rental options? Have you explored that? Because you can rent these bins, can't you? And then the last question was the longevity of them, which Councillor Buchanan mentioned.
All right, there's quite a lot of questions there. Do you want to start off?
Yeah, I mean, through the chair, I mean, the point we've made is that this is about the trial for 4 months. This isn't about whether we buy them in the future or not. And for the 4 months trial, they're being provided free of charge. So that's why the paper says they're not going to benefit financially from that, because it's a loan. Obviously, they want us to eventually buy them, which is why they want to give us a trial. But for the trial, it's free, and they're not benefiting. 13 is based on the fact that they would have to be they would be 300 metres apart from each other. There's 2.2 miles to cover, and if you have less than 13, they're more than 300 metres away from each other, which is detailed in the paper. And there's a concern that the further apart they are, and therefore the further people have to walk with their rubbish, the more likelihood of people fly tipping. So I think the recommendation was that 13 would be the minimum that we would need to cover that distance. They've offered 19, which is the same number as we've currently got. But obviously it's a balance, because the most expensive part of bins is emptying them. So even if there's only a tiny bit in there, you've got to pay the same amount to have them emptied as if it's full up. So it's a balance between having enough but not having too many that you're paying a lot of money to have them emptied.
But you won't be emptying them because you've got the software that tells you they don't need emptying.
For the trial, yeah, because we don't know, the estimation that we've put in here is that we're going to probably end up emptying them once every day through the summer period, because it's going to trial it through the summer. Obviously we don't know yet whether that will be enough or too much, and we'll review that, and if it turns out they're emptying a half empty bin every day, we can tell ID Verdi to reduce the frequency. But we've costed it on the basis of an assumption that once a day will be enough.
Does the software not talk to ID Verdi?
Yeah.
No.
I think we can't have it too many dialogues, because otherwise it turns into a conversation and it's not fair to colleagues. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. And my points kind of build on some of the points already introduced, but I've done a few calculations here, because I also had a similar question to Councillor Dubath in terms of on what basis of the 13 bins rather than 19 being recommended. Now, we don't know whether 19 is optimal. What we've got, it's just a starting point. But converting everything into metres, because I'm new like that, currently they're approximately just short of 200 metres apart, maybe 186 if the figures are particularly accurate. 13, if they were spaced at equal intervals, would be 272. That's 86 metres different, which is almost half the distance again. So whilst you might say, oh, only 300 metres, it's actually quite far when you're on the seafront. There are a lot of people who perhaps have reduced mobility or elderly, or like me, are often carrying poo bags. Now, I'm one of the ones who will travel far to put a poo bag in a bin, but many people sadly won't. And I'm wondering whether, sorry, Councillor Rutland, did you have something else you wanted to say? I noticed there's been a lot of giggling over there whenever I'm talking. Thanks. As this is a trial, and I know it's come up in committee meetings and perhaps even full council meetings before, about providing recycling on the seafront. Now, there's different evidence that suggests that combined recycling, either the rates aren't high enough or they are high enough, but they do have it in places like Saltine and Brighton and places like that. So I'm wondering whether, to kill two birds with one stone, we actually ask for more than 13 bins if we've been offered them, and we actually cite some as recycling bins as well. And then we take the data, which I also wanted to build upon the questions that have already come in about the software. How do we evaluate whether the trial has been successful? And we can also tell once and for all whether recycling would or would not be a goer along the seafront, and put that to bed too, whether it's something to take forward or not. Because with the software and the dedicated bins, and also the evidence from organisations like Plastic Free Seaford, who I was on the phone to just before coming in again, certain materials, in particular plastic bottles, cans and glass bottles, I wouldn't recommend paper, as we know paper gets contaminated, particularly fish and chips, and isn't good for recycling, but certain front runners could be looked at and incorporated in. So I'd quite like to get officers' take on that, and potentially to propose an amendment to the trial to incorporate that in compliance with our climate emergency policy. Thank you.
I mean, through the chair, every extra bin was going to cost us £904 just for the 4 months of the trial, because they're empty. And if this is a balance, you know, we had a £10,000 budget for it. Having 13 is going to cost us £14,000. Officers were trying not to spend all the money by you know, we could have taken 19, but that would have been another 6 lots of £904 onto the cost of the trial. And in terms of the recycling, I mean, do you have a view on that, Sarah? Or?
Yeah, I mean, when we've talked to Lewis District about it before, they talk a lot about contamination and people just not being educated, even by signage or the bins themselves, to recycle properly, and then it's all just being incinerated anyway, so they can't recycle a lot of those bins properly.
Can I come back on that? Because I believe that is more for household and communal household rather than specifically municipal. And also, we've been saving a lot of money over the years on this, not having paid out for the emptyings that have been done. I want to know where that money's gone, where is it sitting, has it been spent on something else? And if we're not going to take additional bins, then why don't we have some of the 13 as recycling bins and try it that way? Because actually, we've resolved as a council. Now we've got climate emergency policy, and as we stand, I don't think it would be compliant with that policy, which is meant to span all our council motions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brewster. Councillor Dunn, and then Councillor Ballman, then Councillor Dunn, then Councillor Taylor. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just one thing. We've had a resident here this evening that said remove the bin near where the gravel strip, because a lot of the camper vans have been using it, and actually if they've got no bin they're not dumping their waste. We, as a strategy on the whole seafront, have we actually trialled no bins at all? And people taking their own waste home rather than a bin there and people just leaving all their waste by a bin. We could trial 4 months with no bins along the seafront, and then we could then move on to, okay, this didn't work, or it actually might work. People might take their waste home with no bins. It is a strategy which comes into our strategic plan because it is something we could look at, and we could be saving money with no cost of bins, no cost of collection. We haven't even thought about that yet.
Councillor Dunn, then Councillor Tech. Sorry.
Thank you,
Councillor Dunn,
Madam
then
Mayor.
Councillor Rutland. I do apologise.
The problem with no bins, it's been trialled all over the country, even Birling Gap trialled it. I used to pray for big bins when I was the councillor in 2011 because I've done so many beach cleans. People will not, in this 21st century, sorry, look at our grass verges. People throw litter out the window. Please don't use the grass verge as a bin. I'm sorry, people do not take their litter home. Birling Gap trialled it. They took all the bins out, but left a dog bin. Nobody could put their dog waste in a dog bin because it was full up with litter. So really, I know we all mean well by saying if you take the bins out, people take the litter home. I'm sad to say they won't. And I've seen horrendous rubbish left behind. The bins we've got today, these dual bins, never used to be in 2011. The law changed to allow dual waste because you was never allowed to put dog waste in a litter bin, but they changed the law, and that is why we now have dual bins where you can put your dog waste in any bin receptacle. So that's why we've got the bigger bins we have. But when I first came to Seaford, we had town bins and dog bins, and the dog bins over time corroded. So please do not trial in any shape or form no bins. We will be in a lot of trouble. Thank you.
Seagulls will be very well fed though. Councillor Rutland.
The whole point of this is a trial. We've got 2.2 miles of seafront, so why not have the bins on one half, no bins on the other half, with signage saying please take your rubbish home, and monitor the results of each half. If it's a trial, you can try more than one thing at the same time, and at the end of the trial we'll actually have some data to come back and say, well, this has worked, that hasn't worked, and this is something in between. If we're going to try something, why not try both?
Officers, do you have a response?
I mean, we haven't considered it in a formal way because it's not been part of any strategic plan or instruction that we've had to consider not having bins. I mean, I think at the moment I would recommend that we do this as a trial, and then potentially in the future this might not work. We don't know that. We could try another alternative next summer and see what has more effect, I suppose. But
I think I would just add there will be some monitoring for this about how much beach waste and general litter there is around to actually properly monitor the effect of no bins. That would take a lot of officer time to go out and monitor how much rubbish per square metre on average and things like that, which currently we haven't got the officer time for it.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Have we, I'm always for learning from other, building on other people's research. And, you know, it's a sort of a list of other places who are using these bins, some of which are coastal, some of which are not. I'm just wondering, do we have any information from, can we glean any information from these, some of these informants, maybe ones that we think are closest to us in terms of comparators?
Sharon? I would have to come back to you on that, just to clarify. I'm not 100% sure what the evidence was.
Through the chair, my understanding is that Brighton Hove had a former version, like what we're proposing to have is upgraded from what Brighton Hove had, and they had that back in 2016, so 10 years ago. And I think with the technology going on, that the bin itself has been improved since then. But I don't believe that we've spoken to these other councils. This is open source data, as it says in the paper, where we've discovered that these are in place. But I mean, I think the point of the trial is that we can find out for ourselves whether it works for Seaford for those 4 months of the summer or not.
Do you have something to add?
Well, in my experience, you know, open source data is one thing, and that's published. But if you have a conversation with someone, you might get more information. I realise it's all more work.
Intelligence gathering.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I understand Councillor Sturton's and other people's aspiration to try no bins, I've had constant complaints about the fact there aren't any bins at Seaford Barn, and there's a lot of litter up there. The other thing to say is that our town bins, the bins that we've got along the seafront, say, you know, if this bin is full, you mustn't put anything beside the bin, £200 fine. It doesn't work, patently. So I really do think we do need bins on the seafront, and I would support Councillor Bristow, but I'm wondering whether we could come to trying to do the recycling thing. Once we've done this trial, maybe try and do the recycling thing. And I would suggest we have completely different types of bins for recycling. Things that are fun, things that inspire people to recycle. You know, there could be a fish or a seagull or something that you put it through its mouth. So I don't know how you empty it, but you know, they have been put elsewhere, and it does inspire people that they feel they're doing something good for nature and for the natural world and for the seafront. So that would be an alternative possible.
I have photographs of such a thing in Portugal, which was wonderful for children. I almost wanted to buy things in order to put it through, so possibly counterproductive. But yeah, I think the idea of fun and recycling and children is quite important. Councillor Honeyman,
thank you. I think
draw this to a close.
I think what Councillor Meek was saying, I think if Councillor Honeyman can believe, there's a place in the South Sea for that, isn't there? You saw something on the beach, down by the prison, a leisure centre area, something for you to look at if you want to. Not too far away, 50 miles to go to Portsmouth, South Sea for the day. If you fancy a day trip out to have a look at the bins, there you go. That's not anyway.
Moving on.
I'm moving on, as you do. I'm sure the one in Portugal is interesting as well.
I'd rather go there to have a look at it.
Yeah,
very nice bit of the Algarve.
Right, we haven't talked about the Euro bin much, which is interesting. We talked about the other style of bins, but not the Euro bin. I am sure that Officer Chairman Biden has ordered them for events at some stage, and I wonder if you got any feedback on that and how that gets managed. And I mean, moving forward, because of the inadvertently not being paying for things, I mean, even after, if we did agree to the 4 months trial, it is 4 months, isn't it, for the belly bin style, do you really think you may have to relook at the bigger picture completely? So there's a few questions there. Successful for the Euro bin style, especially for the event management, so you have done it for that side of things, big events. Would they work down the seafront? That's one question. To leave because this is it with your seagulls. What was I trying to say? Existing bins plus Euro bins next to them, would that work? There's 5, I said it's 5 for so much money, but they still have to be emptied on a regular basis, don't they? So you'd have to have specialist pickers for that. So I don't know if you want to include any of it in the equation, just to see would the euro bins worth trialling that at the same time. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Clark?
Yeah, I mean, through the chair, I mean, the paper does talk in section option 2, 4.11 onwards about the fact we have considered euro bins, 5 on top of the 19.
Yeah.
The issues with it would cost £29,000 for the duration of the trial, and there's a risk that the lids wouldn't be closed by members of the public. They would then be invaded by pests, seagulls, rodents, foxes, etc. And if it was heavily raining, they would leach the rain across the prom, which had gone through the rubbish. So there's a number of reasons why we've not recommended that. We have talked about the fact that they do that in Eastbourne of late, but they also have a seafront workforce that can go along and close them all at night. We don't have that.
They got an office there, and they pop that seafront staff. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to answer your question. Yes, okay, I'm going to draw the discussion to a close then. Okay, so we are being asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Rutland, a seconder, please. Councillor Dubar, those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Thank you. So, item 2, we're being asked to approve option 1, which is the belly bins for seafront provision to enable officers to proceed with procurement and implementation for the summer 2026 trial. Do I have a proposal, please? Councillor Dunn, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Taylor, those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? 1. Thank you. That's passed. Thank you. So we're then asked to approve an increase in funding for the trial from community infrastructure levy funds, up to £5,000 over the pre-approved budget of £10,000. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Buchanan. Seconder, Councillor Meek. Thank you. Those in favour? So this is a top-up funding. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anyone against this proposal? Any abstentions? Again, 1 abstention. Thank you. To delegate authority to the head of place to finalise operational arrangements, exact locations, contracts for installation, removal and emptying services. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Meek, seconder, Councillor Taylor. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? 1 again. Thank you. And to note the estimated financial impact of future seafront bin emptying costs post-trial. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Buchanan. A seconder, please. Councillor Dunn. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? 1 again. Thank you. Right. Moving on to item 7.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, I think we're done. All right. So item 7. This is the Mayor's portfolio. Who's going to talk to this? Darren.
So thank you, Chair. I just wanted to provide some feedback and updates on the policy ahead of inviting any questions. So one of the pieces of feedback that we received on the Mayor's portfolio, which is the first document, is a request to highlight, not the seagulls, a request to highlight and bold all statutory duties of the Mayor, which we're happy to do in the policy. If there's any further feedback or questions, I'm more than happy to take these.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say I think this is a very good report, which is in a sense just as well, because As holder of the current role of Deputy Mayor, I was never consulted on the content of the report. There are various other former mayors and deputy mayors in the room, as well as our current Madam Mayor, of course. I would be curious to know the extent of consultation with current and former holders of both roles.
The simple answer is that when it was agreed for the review of this policy, and from the conversations we had with both the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, is we went forward to produce this, but because of the timelines of the production, in order to get it into this meeting, for then approval from their making in May, there was very little time to go through a consultation process. That said, the conversation that I've had recently is that we recognise that there could have been consultation in that process, however it would have slowed down the production and the timing of this document. So, I recognise that, particularly for yourself, Councillor Sutton, there was an opportunity to do that was missed.
Anyone else with any comments? Or Councillor Honeyman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I welcome some of the points in here because obviously it actually really clarifies what the situation is, and that has been missing sometimes. There's been expectations, and then until you become mayor, they suddenly went, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. So this is quite laid out with what's the expectations, because I know when I took over, you don't necessarily realise quite what's involved until you're doing it. And also how much of it you actually need to be organising yourself and relying on other people or organisations you belong to them to help you organise events. Obviously the officers organise the payments of venues and all that type of thing, but like when I did my civic service, I was lucky I had a group of people who were able to help me organise the events. So that's the type of thing that you're not aware that actually you're organising it and you're organising a whole lot of it. Then obviously liaising with the officers. So it's quite nice that this is actually laid out, so hopefully that will make it a lot clearer for any future members who want to get involved in being the mayor, which is obviously we took bits out and the mayor's role changed quite a bit last year, which makes it a lot less so demanding on different areas. I'll leave it at that. So I welcome the fact that it is laid out to give people clearer understanding. I had a few queries, one of them being on page 49. I just wanted some clarification. It says in 8.62, where a former mayor has previously received a badge, their departure from office will instead be marked with a framed certificate. So what I wanted clarity on is, does this mean that you will no longer get the lovely past mayor's badge that we've all received who've been previous past mayors, which you can then wear to events? And if you're, so for example, a member of the Sussex Mayors Association, you see a lot of past mayors wearing some sort of badge or something, regalia. And it is quite a nice thing to have, and I keep it by my desk as a memento, and it's nice to have. So I just wanted to get this clarified. Is this saying that you will now no longer receive a badge, but you're going to get a certificate instead? Now I have been told previous mayors got a badge and a certificate. I didn't get a certificate. I wasn't that worried about a certificate. But I was worried that this, I just wanted clarity whether you're no longer going to get a badge, you're only going to get a certificate now.
It's a very good question.
It's not clear.
Okay, let me check and I will clarify that for you.
Through the chair, my understanding of what's written is if you've already received a badge.
Oh no, I know, but I'm just saying for future past mayors.
No. I think if you've been a mayor, you will get a badge.
Yeah.
If you do a second year, you're not going to get two badges.
No, but it's not clear.
Yeah.
I just wanted that clarified for the future. But yes, and also I definitely agree with this taking the title out of mayoress, because that caused quite a lot of confusion when I was the mayor, and everyone thought I was the mayoress, and you had to keep explaining. You had to keep explaining what the situation is. So I think the mayor's consort option is a much better option.
Excuse me, I've just had a message from my wife. She's not feeling at all well. She's diabetic, and she just messaged me and say, please come home. She feels very ill.
Right.
So if you'll
Okay,
excuse
please.
me, I will take my leave.
Thank you. We wish you and your wife well.
I'm sure she'll be fine, but
Yeah, you need to go home.
you
Thank
don't ignore a request like that.
No, absolutely not. You need to get home. Thank you.
So my apologies for the rest of the meeting.
Okay, Councillor Hunter.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
For expediency, I'll go
Are you going
this
out
way.
the
she's going to go
that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Take
Thanks,
care.
guys. Good meeting so far.
Thank
Well
you,
done.
Councillor. Right. Okay. We have everybody sat down other than Councillor Hayes, and then we'll resume. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Hayes.
Can someone go through the document and put in bold sort of like the must and the shalls and so on? Because I think at the moment it's not as clear as it could be, if that's possible. So you know if it's if it's an option or it's not an option, then it has to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just when I started talking about it, anything that's a statutory duty, we will highlight above.
The whole sentence, or just the the italics like you do for standing orders, things like that. Or,
Yeah, I think it's similar to standing orders. We're doing the same format, so it's consistent.
Okay, but even within the optional bits, it's always expected sometimes the mayor or deputy mayor's expected to do certain things. So even then, I don't know. Anyway, something to think about. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, did anyone else have any other comments? Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, to pick up on what Councillor Honeyman has said, at 8.6.1 it says on completion of full term of office an outgoing mayor will receive a former mayor's badge. And then it says unless they are re-elected as mayor. So it seems to indicate that if you come back for a second, like yourself, as a second term, you've got your first badge but you wouldn't get it at the end of the second one. So is that more clarification? Is that correct?
That's
Can I
my
just
understanding.
clarify that? Yeah. Okay. Because I was thinking, you might get a badge. Thank you.
Councillor Walraven, thank you. As
Thank you, Madam.
excuse ex-mayor. Thank you.
Past.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Councillor Hanlon. I've just received, although I've been there 4 times, I only received the one past mayor's badge, but I did have each date put on the back of the badge. And the first time, I've been the second time, I did get a nice certificate, the council acknowledging the work that you do as mayor. It is hard work, and you do have to take a year out of what you normally do to concentrate on being mayor and fundraising, which you have to organise yourself with help from officers, but I've always said it's a team effort, so yeah, it's a role which anybody, it's an honour.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I agree with that. Thank you. Councillor Markwell, another past mayor.
I just want to say what's delightful about the badge is that when I then went to an event as a past mayor wearing my badge, there was a lot of badge envy from former mayors from other towns because they didn't have past mayors' badges. And I even showed them the insignias on the back, and they were really pleased. So they took photographs of it and took it back to their own towns to ask whether they could have their former badges, their past mayor badges. So I think we're leading the way here. So we should congratulate ourselves, and thank you very much, officers, for making that happen.
Right, okay. Any other comments? I've just got one or two sort of general comments as to where this came from. I didn't have very much to do with the actual document, the protocol itself. I paid tribute to the revised protocol that Councillor Markwell completely revised last year, because it made the job of mayor much more focused and I think much more civic orientated, and as such is a more if you like satisfying focused job than perhaps previous mayors have encountered, where there's been a lot of behind the scenes management work that has diluted the role itself. But when I was sitting reflecting with officers a few months into the role, there were lots of things that I felt I would have liked to have known. It wouldn't have put me off, but I would have liked to have known, to have been better prepared at the beginning, to have had ideas, plans in advance, because once you hit the ground running, you have a lot of dates, you have a lot of things to do, and as Councillor Warraven says, you have to have the ideas, you have to come up with things, although you get the support. So we wanted much more of a job description, if you like, for the role, so that people had an idea of just the diversity of what's being asked, the number of organisations. So there are certain commitments like Remembrance Sunday, Christmas Magic, etc., where you have predictable dates and undertakings, but there's lots of ad hoc work that often comes in at very short notice. I do feel this document is a work in progress. I think there are quite a lot of duplications. I think lists could be put into appendices. I think it could be shortened and made more succinct, but it's an idea of giving future potential mayors a much better idea of what they're likely to encounter, to help them understand what's going to be asked of them and know what the civic office is going to provide to them. So it's, if you like, if we start with an idea that we want people to have an understanding of what they're taking on, so it's less off-putting than perhaps someone who is trying to find out from previous mayors and getting different signals about how well their year went or how well it didn't. So it's to try and have a much clearer idea written down, transparent and factual about the kind of things that one is likely to encounter. And that, you know, I think that it needs an early review. And one thing I think I would suggest is perhaps it's reviewed in 6 months' time, perhaps, rather than a year's time. But I think the intent was to be much more transparent with what is being asked of the mayor and the deputy mayor. Because the other issue of this was with changing work patterns, caring roles within families, etc. You need actually a functioning partnership between mayor and deputy mayor. And that, I felt, was something that we really needed to think about. We're not just appointing a mayor and a deputy mayor who stands in when the mayor's busy or unavailable. It is very much a working partnership, and I thought that was something we needed to strengthen and emphasise. So I'll be quiet now, because there are a few factual issues as well that I picked up and I fed back to the civic officers, but I won't share those now. Councillor Bristow.
Oh, thanks, Jo. I don't know if I can really follow you. I was really only going to ask about the social media. I see it says Facebook, and I wonder now that we're on Instagram if we ought to just have a sort of generic social media. I mean, I don't know if the mayor's going to be on TikTok in the future, for example. I assume not.
My dead body, but probably. I can't answer that. Any comments from officers?
I think if we're going to have an amendment to bring it back in 6 months, then obviously that's something which Darryl can consider in terms of the revised document that we'll bring back in due course.
Yeah. I think that's, I would welcome that. So, sorry, I just lost my place. Right, okay. Appendix B, yeah. Appendix B.
So Appendix A, you're happy with it, you don't want to stuff.
So let me check.
That's the legal.
the only thing here is, I think that's another amendment, isn't it, about the mayoress, but
Yeah,
no.
that's the delegate authority to make a change.
It is only Appendix B, where I think various things need to be. Yes. Right. Okay. So this is just to clarify that I'm suggesting it's Appendix B that is brought back in 6 months' time, and Appendix A, much more the legalities. It doesn't need to be reviewed for a year, so that's not to be changed. Okay. So drawing this to a close, we're being asked to consider the contents of the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Borman, seconded Councillor Walraven. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Right. To consider the recommendation to separate the Mayor's portfolio into one policy that details roles and responsibilities and another that gives guidance and sets expectations. So it's Appendix A, Appendix B. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Borman, thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor Markwell. Those. Sorry.
Sorry, I thought you were recommending.
No, sorry. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Right. To consider the new Mayor and Deputy Mayor roles and responsibilities, Appendix A. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Borman, thank you. A seconder. Oh, right. Sorry. Oh, a recommendation. I'm sorry. I am on the wrong one. Yes, okay. So we've noted the contents, yes. Okay. Yes, sorry. I was looking at the wrong part. So item 2, to agree to separate the Mayor's portfolio into 2 different policies. So we just need to get the words right. Councillor Walraven, seconder Councillor Borman. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Right. To adopt.
That's the first one, Appendix A.
The first one is A.
Appendix
Yeah. Okay. So item 3, to adopt the Mayor and Deputy Mayor roles and responsibilities policy. That's Appendix A. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Taylor, thank you. A seconder. Councillor Dunn, thank you. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you.
You need to decide whether or not you trust us to bring it back, or if you need to amend the recommendation, it's up to you.
I'm happy to trust you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, given that I'm requesting that we bring review of the mayoral role, guidance and expectations policy, I Appendix B, I'm happy to leave this to be noted in the recommendations. We don't need an amendment. I'm happy with that. I hope colleagues are. So item 4, to adopt the mayor role, guidance and expectations as discussed. Thank you, Councillor Bristow. A seconder, please. Councillor Buchanan. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? No, so that's unanimous. And finally, to determine whether the title Mayoress should be removed and replaced with a non-gender specific alternative of Mayor's consort, and if agreed, to delegate authority to the Town Clerk to amend policies according following this meeting. So I have a proposal. Thank you, Councillor Markwell. Seconder, Councillor Borman. Those in favour? Get rid of the Mayoress. Thank you. Those anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. We're not misogynists here, so it's good to move into the 21st century. It's 8:30. Shall we take a 5-minute break? Yeah. Okay, I'll suspend standing orders for 5 minutes. Just my last one. Right, okay. Reinstating standing orders at 20:38, and we're moving to agenda item 8, which is review and adoption of website accessibility statements policy. Who's speaking to this?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So just to highlight, these are required to be updated for our new Seaford Golf Course website and to be put in place for the future Seaford Town Council website as the current statements are outdated. Any questions?
Any queries? Councillor Markham.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I just wanted to kind of clarify, I'm pretty sure I've got this right, but I just thought I'd ask whether this is the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart, in that because you're doing the website anyway, that this policy is required because you need to agree and present the standards before you then use the software, or is it linked to what's happening with changing council websites and using, and using other things? So we need the policy before you're actually able to do that. Is that the intention?
Essentially, the existing accessibility statements are outdated and make reference to the parts that we don't comply to the current existing guidance. So that's why we've changed it for the Seaford Golf. We want to change it for the Seaford Golf Course, and the same will be for the Town Council one. So yes, is the simple answer.
Thank you.
Any other questions, queries, comments? We shall move to a vote then. So we're being recommended to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Lockhart, seconder. Councillor Meek. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? So that's unanimous. And secondly, to adopt the website accessibility statements policy. Proposer, please. Councillor Bristow, seconder. Councillor Taylor. Those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? So again, unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 9, adoption of an interim scheme of delegation to officers policy. This is all part of the strengthening of the staff, the teams and officers' ability to make decisions and share responsibility. So it's part of the strengthening of the team and our ability to deliver to the public. So we're being asked to consider the policy and then move to a vote. So first, are there any questions or queries for officers? Seems fairly straightforward, I have to say. No, okay, that's good. Right, we're being asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Borman, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Walraven, thank you. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? So that's unanimous. And to adopt an interim scheme of delegation to officers policy as recommended by the Finance and General Purposes Committee, and by doing so archive the previous scheme of delegation, noting that a comprehensive review of the policy will take place within the next 12 months. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Markwell, thank you. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? So again, that's unanimous. Right, moving on to agenda item 10 on page 78. This is the display screen users policy. Darryl, any comments?
No, just briefly say this is just an update and review of the existing policy. There's minimal changes.
Okay, any questions, comments? Councillor?
Thank you, Madam. It's not a question. I just want to point out our officers work very hard to bring these reports to our full council. But as we all know, they've already been to a committee. They've been to finance. They've been to assets, GOSCA, whatever, or personnel. And I just want to point out. I just want to say through you, Madam Mayor, that we thank the officers. And the reason we all sit around and don't say anything is because we've had good discussions at the relevant committee. And that really does help. So really we're just sort of signing off, if you like. And I don't want the officers to think that we just are not interested. So can I just point that out? Thank you.
Thank you.
I like it when you do that.
Very good. I think officers usually know when we're not happy with something. Okay. So, first of all, we're being asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Warman, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Meek. Those in favour? Thank you very much. Anyone against? Any abstentions? So that's unanimous. And to adopt the revised display screen equipment users policy as recommended by the Personnel Committee. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Markwell, seconded Councillor Warman, thank you. Those in favour? Good. Anyone against? Any abstentions? So once again, unanimous. So the committee system is working. That's good. Right. I'm on a roll here. Okay, so this is agenda item 11, page 89. This is the adoption of staff travel expenses policy. Again, Darryl.
Yeah, as before, it's just a simple update and review of the existing policy.
Any comments, queries? Should we move to a vote? Okay. We're being asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Meek, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Markwell. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Unanimous. And secondly, to adopt the revised staff travel expenses policy as recommended by the Personnel Committee. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Markwell. Seconder, please. Councillor Duba. Those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? So again, unanimous. Item 12, page 100. This is the adoption of a rebranded bookings, hire and events policy. I'm living the dream here. Darryl.
Okay, so this is a rebrand. This was originally the events policy, but bearing in mind we are now managing bookings and hire of the pitches, we incorporated all of these into one policy. Anybody else have any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
Councillor Honeyman.
Yes, I would just actually like to say thank you. This has been something that's been needed for a long time, and I know especially members who use the Crouch a lot, this was something they've asked a lot, and they now have a calendar and they can now see exactly when there's events going on. So I just want to say thank you, because hopefully that will solve a lot of problems that they'll be able to see straight away, which is what they've been asking for many years.
Any further questions or queries? Certainly sounds a very welcome and common sense step. Right, so we're being asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposal, please, colleagues? Councillor Dunn, seconder, Councillor Borman. Thank you. Those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Unanimous. And secondly, to adopt the rebranded bookings, hire and events policy, and in doing so, archive the current events policy and premises hire charge policy. That's quite a mouthful. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Taylor, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Buchanan, thank you. Those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? So passed unanimously. Thank you. So, and lastly, the adoption of the discretionary grants. This is item 13, page 113. We're being asked to consider it and then move to a vote. Any comments, Darryl?
No, just to say this was discussed at length in the F&GP meeting, and as recommended from that, with the amendments we put in place as part of that discussion.
Councillor Duda?
there isn't anything in the grants policy that mentions if an organisation already receives a grant from a principal authority like Lewis, for example, or East Sussex, that they shouldn't be getting a grant from us. I wasn't at F&GP to bring that up. Thank you.
I think in answer to that, it wasn't in the previous one, it wasn't in any of the feedback that was given and provided by the committee previously, and the discretionary grants working group here, it was not in any of their recommendations, so it hasn't been incorporated. I think probably from the conversations we had in that meeting, I think we were quite clear cut on it. I'm trying to just think out loud as to why we would stop it, because it would be that it could always be the case that people would receive grants from two different organisations and it wouldn't prevent that. So I can't see it. I genuinely can't see a reason why people can't bid for multiple grants from multiple organisations.
Councillor Sturton, then Councillor Markwell, then Councillor Dunn.
I'd like to speak to the issue raised by Councillor Dubas on substance, and respectfully to disagree with her. I think as a matter of principle we should not be excluding recipients of grants from a principal authority from receiving discretionary grants from Seaford Town Council. I think it's one thing if the same service is being funded twice, so that may well be something that F&GP would want to take into account in considering the merits of a specific application and then downrate it for that reason. But if, for example, an organisation was applying for a grant to provide, say, an additional level of service within Seaford Town Council, I would think this would be most proper. And I would want us to get behind the idea that this would be most proper.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I echo Councillor Sturton. I think just our experience today with which Darryl shared with me, the Deputy Town Clerk, in health stakeholders, we heard all about the youth services in the town and the desperate need for funding from pretty much all of them. But to actually ensure that they were able to look at match funding and match bids is absolutely the way to go. I think it's incredibly important that there's some collaboration and that we're not encouraging too much competition, because everyone in Seaford that's applying for a grant is actually doing so because they are trying to improve services to our population, and so a little bit more coordination and possibly opportunities for match funding and to consider those is, is really probably the way forward, because quite often we're not offering lots of money in our grant system anyway, and it's possible that they wouldn't be able to carry out what they want to do by only having our grant, even the larger one, and they would need to get grant support from elsewhere. So it's quite possible that they will double up on where they're going for their grants funding for one particular thing, because the one thing is too expensive otherwise. So I think we just need to be more quite empathetic about that, really. I'm looking to you, Darryl, for a comment.
Just pointed out by George, in the grants application form, there is a section that asks you to declare if you're making a contribution from other funds. So that's part of that process. So when it's assessed, the working group can then make a decision as to whether they take that forward, knowing that there is funding being received from other groups.
Through the chair, I think it's also important to add that it might be that they get it from the principal authority before they get it from Seaford Town Council, or it might be the other way round. And so there's a danger that if, they might choose not to bid for one because they hope to get the other one, but actually they need the income from both. So.
And an awards committee knowing what's going on, it's not the same as an awards committee barring someone or an organisation from applying because they've got it. it's a different decision process really, isn't it? Councillor Dunn and then Councillor
Yeah,
Bristow.
thank you, Mayor. I was at the Finance and General Policies Committee because I did substitute for Councillor Dubas. From what I can remember, when I raised it, it was more in line with bigger organisations like CAB that did receive their funding from Lewis District. Is that not? That was, and I was explained on the night that was a sort of different type of funding, that it didn't quite fall into this. And I don't know if Councillor Dubas is on thinking along them terms, whether it's like the more bigger organisations that do obviously get their support from bigger authorities. And then it was explained that wasn't the same as the discretionary grant.
I think what you're referring to, Councillor Dunn, is the fact that the CAB have a 3-year service level agreement
That's
with
it,
us,
yes.
which is a guarantee of income for 3 years.
Yes.
Whereas what we believe they applied for from the District Council was a 1-year grant.
Oh, right.
And so they are two different things. But I think to further the point, what that would mean if we introduced a ban on both is that if one organisation did get a 3-year service level agreement, for all 3 of those years they wouldn't be allowed to apply to the Lewis District Council.
Okay.
So they would have to rely on solely the income from our SLA.
Does that help?
Is that Councillor Bristow?
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. I was going through the document trying to find out what would happen in the case, which we have had before, whereby a grant is awarded but it's not spent within the year. And I have found it on page 123 under section 8, monitoring and evaluation. It talks about what happens if the grant money is not spent. I wonder whether, and I'd actually propose a slight amendment to this, that we've got section 7, payment of awarded grants, that we actually have a section on perhaps after 8, repayment of grants, so that it's really clear to anyone applying for this and judging this, because effectively, if an organisation receives a grant and doesn't spend it for the intended purpose or doesn't spend it at all, it's effectively taking that money out of availability for another cause that could have used it that year. And I'm really pleased to see down here, I think it's 8.4 perhaps, where it says that they'll produce all updated documentation, because essentially in some ways, and I know it's not exactly the same financially, but it's a little bit like giving someone a loan, and if they can't spend that loan the first year and their circumstances change, they may be in even less of a position financially to actually spend it the second year. So it's really important to have all that information on which to base the judgment. So I was really pleased to see that in, but I just wonder whether we ought to perhaps make that a little bit more explicit in there, so that there's not a kind of reading it and it's sort of very soft and they kind of think, oh, you know, it's almost like we'll just get a rollover, which has happened before. So yeah, I would just like to see that maybe in its own section.
So are you proposing an amendment, and if so, would you like to come up with a form of words? I'm not very clear about what your comments mean, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a section which is number 7, which is payment, and then monitoring and evaluation, and then I think there should be a bit in terms of repayment or forwarding on, because monitoring and evaluation isn't actually the same as deciding whether it should be rolled forward or repaid. Monitoring and evaluation is quite a different set.
Through the chair, I mean, does 8.2 and 8.3 not say what your, and 8.4 not say what your...
Yeah, but I don't think that's not monitoring and evaluation, that's to do with repayment terms.
So what do you want? Do you want to change the title of item 8?
Yeah, I'd separate the monitoring and evaluation, and then I'd put another section and say about repayment terms.
Darryl, have you got any comments on that?
And then there's one further point about how to okay.
So do you want 8.6, an extra point, or do you want...
No, it's a separate subheading. As I said, 7 payment, 8 can be monitoring and evaluation, and then if, basically to do monitoring and evaluation anyway,
yeah,
But in the it then starts talking about the circumstance whereby the money, if it's not spent in the relevant financial year, it's then returned. But that's not part of monitoring and evaluation. That's just if it hasn't occurred.
It's an outcome. So what we just talked about was reading section 8, monitoring and evaluation. 8.1 will stay under that. New section, section 9, new section 9, repayment of awarded grants, whatever the right title is, then current 8.2 to 8.5 goes under the new section. So there's no real change to the content, it's just a new section headed there to clarify.
So instead of 8.1, 8.2, we would have 9.
Yeah, 8.1 will stay the same.
Yeah, and we have 9, 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, 9.4 as a new section, but nothing actually rewritten, it's just restructured. That's
That's me.
Are you happy? Have we got that amendment? Yeah, okay. Right, any further?
We need to vote on the amendment if you're going to take it forward.
Sure.
I think Councillor.
Yeah.
This will be very quick, thank you, Chair. 8.3, where an organisation requests a grant be carried forward to the next financial year, they will not permitted to apply. I think you want to add a B in there.
Yeah. To the typo. Yes.
Thank you.
Noted. Right, okay.
It's always someone.
Proof that you've read
Just a normal
it.
B.
Okay, respect, thank you. Any further comments or queries for officers? Okay. Fine. So, we're being asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Duns, seconder Councillor Borman. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? So we're being asked to, an amendment as proposed by Councillor Bristow to change, to take item section 8 and have 8.1, and then from 8.2 to 8.5 to have a new structure called loan repayment, grant repayment, sorry, but no changing in the wording. Is that correct? Okay. You're happy to propose that?
Yes.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Buchanan, thank you. Those voting in favour of the amendment as per Councillor Bristow. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Councillor Borman, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Warren, thank you. So we're now voting on the revised section 2 to adopt the revised discretionary grants policy as amended, as recommended by the Finance and General Purposes Committee. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Meek, thank you. Councillor Markwell, seconder. Those in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. 2 abstentions. Okay, right. We're now moving to agenda item 14, which is exclusion of press and public.
Order, Madam Mayor. Before we, do I stand?
Yes, please do.
Before we move to the motion to exclude the press and public, I would like to note that it is Madam Mayor's final meeting as Mayor of Seaford. She will preside over the beginning of our mayor making ceremony, as everyone knows. And I'd just like to pay tribute to Councillor Weirman. I think what a fantastic job she has done. I'd like to note that it has very much been a year of highs and lows. We have had an element of tragedy in our town, which Madam Mayor dealt with in an absolutely appropriate way. I'd like to pay tribute to what a great job she's done in terms of promoting the charities, and also what a great job she's done in keeping many of us, including myself, in order.
Thank you very much. It's much appreciated. And I wish my successor, whoever that is, next month, very best of luck and the support that they will get from the officers and I'm sure from the residents of Seaford. It's been quite a journey. You get out of it what you put into it and it's been a memorable experience. So thank you for noticing. Thank you. Right. Okay, on that note, let's get this over the line. Right, item, thank you to Councillor Stewart. Exclusion of the press and public. The Chair will move that in accordance with the Public Bodies Admissions to Meetings Act 1960, the press and public will be excluded from the meeting during the discussion on the next item of business for the reasons set out below. The resolutions of the items will be recorded publicly in the minutes of the meeting, of this meeting. The proper officer considers the discussion of the following items is likely to disclose exempt information as defined in the Local Government Act 1972 and data protection legislation, and may therefore need to take place in private session. The exempt information reasons are given alongside each item below. Furthermore, in relation to paragraph 10 of Schedule 12A, it is considered that the public interest in maintaining exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Right, so we are now... Oh, right. Can I have a proposer for this? Thank you, Councillor Buchanan. A seconder, please, Councillor Walraven. Those in favour of going into exempt session? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you.